Welcome to the Virtual Strategic Solutions Virtual Reality Simulation System. Accessing Legacy Dataset. Files loaded, simulation ready. The Beast of Beckley is a unique wolf, cryptid in Appalachia. She is a dangerous albino wolf, known since before the Great War, and raises her pups in her den. Intrigued by reports of a shredded bear and sightings of a pale monster near Beckley, Janelle Priblo set off to find and trap the beast. Raymond Priblo showed up later to assist Janelle, but disregarded her warnings and was killed by the beast. Soon after, desiring revenge for Raymond's death, Janelle attempted to leave the area to assemble a hunting party, but was caught unaware when the beast attacked and killed her too. Before the Great War, Isaac Garahan owned several sloths at his family's estate. They are recorded to have escaped the enclosure on at least 2 occasions, and the lack of sloth remains in the cages at the Garahan estate implies they escaped again following the war. The mega sloths are 3-toed sloths mutated by radiation. Standing much taller than the average human, their body is covered with filthy and shaggy fur, with clusters of mushrooms growing in the fur on their back, similar to fungus that grew in the fur of pre-war sloths. These megasloth mushrooms release clouds of spores when the sloth shakes its body, deterring aggressors that get too close. They have heavily calloused patches of skin and sharp teeth. Megasloths are much larger than pre-war variants. Unlike most creatures, megasloths may not be immediately hostile. They will ignore anything that is not attacking them. Megasloths can be found throughout the mire and cranberry bog. Some can be found dangling from large trees, similar to gulpers. In close combat, they can use their claws to scratch, dealing heavy damage. From afar, they may hurl rocks or shake to release a cloud of fungal spores from the mushrooms growing on their back, which clouds one's vision. The megasloth is a reference to prehistoric Megalonyx giant ground sloths, some varieties of which could be the size of elephants. The first fossil evidence of these creatures was purportedly discovered in Organ Cave in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, although newer evidence has suggested the fossils were actually found in Monroe County. The Grafton monster, once a cryptid associated with West Virginia, was made flesh by West Tech's experiments at their Huntersville facility. Using the FEVS 006458 strain on October 23, 2077, scientists created a stable, if horrifying, mutation. Based on the Snallygaster strain, researchers tweaked the genome, producing a giant that shattered the containment unit, but was otherwise stable, excepting the absence of a discernible head. The mutant was sedated and transported off-site via truck, with the Great War sidetracking the convoy and allowing the monster to escape into the wild due to a nuclear detonation blinding the driver. The resulting monster is headless, hairless, and has a grayish color skin with a leathery texture. It stands around 7.5 feet, 2.3 meters tall, and has an oversized chest. The mutations that turned it into a powerhouse have also turned its skin and led to the development of glands that can eject globs of corrosive, oily substance in a wide area around it. It will generally be hostile towards nearby creatures, as well as the player character. The huge blowholes on the shoulders of the Grafton monster are its weakest point. This Grafton monster is infected with parasites and suffering from deep, seeping lesions. It is wrapped in green and orange vines. It is often called in as a reinforcement for the Strangler Heart during Heart of the Swamp, or as the Alpha Predator in Project Paradise. A Grafton monster under the effects of the Scorched Plague. This variant was only encountered on the nuclear Winter Morgantown map. The Ogua is a large turtle-like creature. The cult of the Mothman have targeted the Ogua in an attempt to sacrifice it to the Mothman, believing the Ogua's ancient blood holds divine secrets and the ability to see into the past. To this end, they have been tracking the creature as it travels south in the cranberry bog, where it has taken up residence. The Ogua, also known as the Monongahela River Monster, is a creature in real-life West Virginia folklore, reportedly first associated with the 1746 disappearance of a young boy and popularized with a 1983 sighting in Marion County. It has been variously described as a 20-foot-long creature, similar to a monstrous snapping turtle, dwelling the Monongahela River. The Jersey Devil was originally a creature of myth, an old folk legend tied to the Pine Barrens. The legend states that a woman named Leeds, Jane Leeds, cursed her 13th child in pregnancy, frustrated by her ever-expanding family. She said that the child would be the devil. As the legend states, she actually gave birth to a dragon-like abomination, which promptly fled away from its mother into the wilds of the pines. The legend persisted, and the devil was depicted on the collectible card released by Grey Tortoise to promote its cigarettes. The tale provided a readily available name when a dragon-like mutant did appear in the Pine Barrens area. While myths about it being an actual incarnation of Satan, together with the usual stories of pacts and boons, the devil was just a horribly mutated and incredibly dangerous wild animal. The Jersey Devil and its offspring, known as lesser devils, have a unique feature: their blood. Antonio Russo learned of this when he and Jean analyzed the body of a lesser devil that Antonio killed. Antonio made a mistaken attempt to seek out the Jersey Devil and sign over his soul, at first under the impression the Jersey Devil would be intelligent. However, he had no choice but to kill the lesser devil when it turned out to be a hostile animal. The blood is incredibly potent and addictive, with Russo and Jean turning it into the devil's blood, a highly addictive, incredibly rare and prohibitively expensive narcotic for Atlantic City high rollers. However, Antonio was unaware that the lesser devils emerging from the Pine Barrens near Atlantic City were actually juveniles. The lesser devils are offspring of the real Jersey Devil, which has even more potent blood, strong enough to produce an antidote for the devil's blood chem. The devil's blood continues to be produced from slain lesser devils who wander into the city, while the real Jersey Devil still lies in wait in the Pine Barrens. One way to lure it out is to use pheromones. The devil reacts strongly to pheromones its species emit, enough to draw one from the Barrens into the flooded city center of Atlantic City. The Jersey Devil appears only as a boss fight during the quest Sins of the Father. After its hit points are depleted, the player has a choice on what to do with its blood, at which point the Jersey Devil will fly away and escape. The Jersey Devil will not actually die, but the player will still gain experience points for defeating it in battle. Mothmen are a species of mutant insect found in Appalachia. Named for the 20th century folkloric figure, or cryptid, these furtive creatures are worshipped by the cult of the Mothman, who still inhabit the museum at Point Pleasant, dedicated to its mythology. The basic Mothman NPC appears as part of a random encounter. If approached or attacked, Mothman will fly off and disappear. In actuality, the Mothman is not a singular entity, and there are many Mothmen with various eye colors and characteristics. Hostile Mothmen can be encountered quite regularly by visiting cultist locations at night, though they occasionally spawn elsewhere and observe humans from a distance. Most of these creatures are believed to be interchangeable animals, even by their worshippers, who consider them divine heralds of a higher power. However, a sect calling themselves the Enlightened exclusively revere the purple-eyed wise Mothman, which they believe to be a unique, sentient mortal creature who somehow existed before the Great War. Prior to the Great War, the Mothman was a mythical creature in local Appalachian folklore, described as a terrifying half-man, half-moth who stalked Point Pleasant. It was considered a harbinger of great danger due to its historic tendency to appear before deadly disasters in the area. The story of the Mothman was sensational enough to create a wide following, ranging from cryptid hobbyists to aggressive conspiracy theorists hell-bent on uncovering the deeper mystery of the creature. The Mothman's legend led to a number of tourist attractions, such as the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant. Stories featuring the Mothman and other popular fiction were sold here as books and novelty holotapes. The Mothman was seen as unworthy of study by the scientific community, but enjoyed enduring popularity as local folklore. At some point, a clandestine church of devotees formed in Point Pleasant, the mysterious cult of the Mothman. Its followers were fervent in their worship of the Mothman as a divine being. They organized rituals in secret at the chapel beneath the Mothman Museum. Fringe cryptid enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists, unaffiliated with the cult, also took serious interest in the legend. As the nuclear holocaust loomed on the horizon, the cult attempted to summon the creature to benefit from its cosmic wisdom and earn protection from the nuclear fire soon to rain from the skies. The summoning was successful on October 22, 2077. Just one of their number, Brother Charles, claimed to have seen the Mothman in a glimpse, who warned of a flood to come on the following day. The faithful took it as a signal to gather on the rooftops to avoid the deluge and prove their faith to the Mothman. The deluge came in the form of nuclear fallout. The cultists ultimately survived through the apocalypse by traveling to the Lucky Hole mine across the state, nestled into the cliffs overlooking Watoga. As the cult remained in the safety of the mine, the Charleston Emergency Government formed to the north, where people were disturbed by frequent sightings of the Mothman. The creature was also documented by the Appalachian enclave at some point. The cult ultimately split into two groups. The enlightened emerged from the mine early, with the prophet who would come to be known as Wise Charles the Forewarned, and fled the state. They came to serve the unique purple-eyed Wise Mothman, a mortal creature, to whom they attribute Charles's vision on the eve of the war. The followers of the Winged One continued to dwell in the Lucky Hole mine until they eventually spread out in a series of crusades, establishing footholds in surrounding territories. On the surface, they directly worshipped the numerous red-eyed mutant moths, collectively as manifestations of the holy Mothman, a god of light. Like all other humans on the surface, the cultists had all fled or died by 2102. In the aftermath of the plague, feral Mothmen stalked the ruins in silence. When the Vault Dwellers emerged on Reclamation Day, evidence of unspeakable occultic sacrifice littered Appalachia. In 2103, the followers of the Winged One returned to their former settlements and built new ones. To this day, they can be seen communing with Mothman in the woods at night. These violent cultists have even been known to protect the creature's nests and care for their young. In 2105, the cultists abandoned Ingram Mansion, and large Mothman nests were cleared from the area. Rituals to summon the Wise Mothman are still held at Landview Lighthouse and Point Pleasant. These rare creatures like to stalk humans, only to flee or defend themselves when confronted. They may also stand on a perch in the ruins or wilderness, watching over a specific area. However, they do not attack opportunistically, and must be threatened or startled into combat. If approached from a distance, they generally acknowledge and warn enemies before resorting to violence. When idle and alone, they tend to sit with their wings wrapped around themselves like a shroud. At a glance, they could be mistaken for a huddled, cloaked figure, were it not for their piercing eyes. Their silhouette is also distinguished by segmented antennae, evoking small antlers or furrowed brows. Their leathery wings are usually drawn back in the presence of people. They pull themselves forwards on four undulating legs, with a pair of forelegs held close to the face. As they amble over land, their wings drag behind them like overlong coattails. This reduces stress on the abdomen, their center of gravity, which must be dragged across the ground. The top and back of the body is protected by a heavy brown mane, somewhat resembling the mantle of a fur cloak. Glowing and scorched Mothmen have many glowing spots around the thorax. Though they may chaotically slam around the environment when defending themselves, they are not known to bite, scratch, sting, wrestle, or otherwise attempt to physically strike their foes. Mothmen can defend themselves sonically by chittering intensely while hovering. They are also capable of releasing a very large blue shockwave to repulse their foes, but the specific nature of this ability is unspecified by the text. They make subtle chirping noises typical of giant insects. Their voices are softer than those of giant ants and slightly rattled or distorted by comparison. Shadowy clouds seem to pour from their bodies at most times. Additionally, small black specks rise from their bodies and fade away. This phenomenon may be related to the powdery neurotoxin which dusts their wings. When startled, Mothmen vanish in an abrupt liftoff, apparently dissolving into a wisp of smoke. Aggressive Mothmen will reappear in a similar manner, slamming onto the ground disruptively. Mothmen prefer to nest among jagged roots, overtaking pre-war structures, and exclusively leave their eggs in the care of cultists since their return to the state in 2103. Mothman eggs are soft and partially transparent with a red center. They are generally protected by cultists who monitor egg clutches until they hatch. The cultists also extract a holy oil from the Bright One's eggs for the anointment of ceremonial blades. Cultist high priests may carry an individual perfect Mothman egg in their packs. The eggs can also be cooked into Mothman egg omelettes. Mothman affected by the scorched plague also have green eyes, but are not known to peacefully engage with cultists. Whatever might influence so-called holy Mothmen to develop red eyes is not understood. All skittish Mothmen have red eyes, but holy Mothmen are otherwise functionally identical to vengeful and glowing Mothmen. In pre-war pulp iconography, the Mothman of urban legend is overwhelmingly depicted with red eyes. The enlightened abhor these creatures and believe pre-war cultists were mistaken for serving a Mothman with red eyes. They also use the term Holy Mothman in reference to this false idol, but more commonly dismiss it as the red-eyed pretender. The enlightened claim the magenta-eyed wise Mothman is a unique pre-war being. They revere it, but do not worship it. They believe it communicates with them through non-verbal means and grants them visions. This is the only variant non-hostile to vault dwellers. The followers dismiss the wise one as a purple lyre and butterfly, and condemn its students as apostates. Some enlightened attempt to sacrifice humans to the wise Mothman. However, the creature is not known to react positively to this gesture. Mothmen have a large detection radius and will typically observe players until they get too close. If the player continues to advance or startles the Mothman, it will flee or attack. Highly evasive by nature, a Mothman that feels directly threatened will chaotically reposition by vanishing every several seconds for as long as it senses danger. A non-hostile, magenta-eyed Mothman, seen after completing the Path to Enlightenment event quest at the Landview Lighthouse. Interacting with the wise Mothman will grant wisdom of the Mothman a plus 5% experience point boost for the next hour. The creature also appears in Point Pleasant during the Mothman Equinox, a seasonal festival held by the enlightened to bask in the presence of the Wise One and help him absorb celestial energy. A tiny Mothman encountered only during daily ops, or during the Mothman Equinox if a perfect Mothman egg is placed in the cradle of the pretenders during the ceremony. A cryptid stalking the Appalachian mountains, the Sheepsquatch myth was an obsession for many cryptid hunters, including one named Calvin Van Lowe, who devoted his life to hunting it down. The cryptid is known to have existed in the years before the Great War, but knowledge of its existence was not widespread. Graduate students Michael Turner and Cindy Holloway met their ends from a Sheepsquatch, while cryptid hunter Ray Gary was left crippled after encountering one, keeping his experience secret to save others from the same fate. The wandering storyteller talks at length about the creature, describing his own experiences with the cryptid and speculating on its origins. Sheepsquatches have a high amount of hit points and are always one-star legendary enemies, which makes them hardy adversaries. Upon regenerating to full health and gaining their legendary bonuses, they will begin to glow red. They will also howl at random intervals during combat, allowing the player character a few precious moments to heal. They will often perform a basic swipe and headbutt attack at nearby enemies. This does not do significant damage, but if they manage to stagger the player character, it can make it quite difficult to survive a repeated bombardment of hits. They can also jump and launch their quills in a powerful area of effect attack. If their opponent is out of melee range, they can rip out a handful of poisonous quills and throw them at their target. They can also perform a ram attack that allows them to close the distance between themselves and attackers very quickly. The enlightened refer to squatches of diverse shape in their tome, False Gods of Appalachia. A young sheepsquatch is referred to as a lamb squatch. Experiments with recombinant strains of FEV at the West Tech Research Center in Appalachia produced numerous failed mutations, with 2 exceptions. The first of these was FEVS006443 from October 14, 2077, a Phase 2 combination strain that combined traits that resembled a number of different species. The results were considered disturbing by the scientists, but provided valuable insights as to the capability of recombinant FEV. Changes included a number of ocular organs along the enlarged upper torso, a second set of arms ending in clawed digits, and a large sickle-shaped claw on each inner toe. The living, stable and functioning subject was sustaining itself normally, a major accomplishment for the program, and was planned for release in Huntersville after the subsequent experiment matured. The mutant was not returned to the area until January 3, 2078, when it escaped containment and the facility. The mutant procreated, leading to the emergence of Snallygaster mutants across Appalachia. It has no proper face, but has a mouth with a long tentacle-like tongue covered in acid and has multiple eyes along its back. A Snallygaster will use its tongue like a whip up close and spit balls of acid at a range. The Snallygaster has at least 40 eyes, 2 rows of teeth and thorns on its back. It has been described as being a dragon-like demon that haunts an area outside of neighboring DC. They are easily recognizable from a distance due to their signature clicking sounds and the thick, pungent odor they emit. Snallygasters are almost exclusively found around highly toxic or irradiated areas in groups of up to 4. When provoked, they will spit a ball of toxic slime from the mouth, dealing poison damage. They will then run to the player character and use a melee attack, either scratching or hitting the player character with their tongue. When idle, and having not spotted the player character yet, they can be heard making various grunting and snorting noises. Snallygasters are immune to radiation damage and take 150% damage when struck in the head. Wendigos are mutated humanoids encountered in post-apocalyptic Appalachia. Individuals such as Morris Stevens have transformed into the creatures, connected through their indulgence in the act of cannibalism. Pre-war urban legends surrounding the Wendigo cave within the Savage Divide became reality when the progenitor Wendigo made its home there. While Wendigos exist in Appalachia, only a handful can be specifically traced to a named pre-mutation human, with each person that mutated having largely unique circumstances leading to their transformation. The only constant in each scenario is the consumption of human flesh prior to becoming a Wendigo, though that does not explain why they have thus far only appeared in Appalachia, or why Wendigos were not commonplace before the Great War. It is possible that the addition of nuclear radiation could be the catalyst for the mutation. Earl Williams became a cannibal so addicted to human flesh he was willing to kill for it in 2076, before the dropping of the bombs, but it's unclear when his physical mutation started. Additionally, many of the recorded cases involve mental degeneration shortly before the transformation, though it is unknown if that is a requirement for the mutation to take hold, or merely a symptom exhibited before turning. There are some implications that Wendigos may be a subtype of feral ghouls, or a similar type of mutant. During the Vault 79 raid, a Wendigo can be found among the populace of feral ghouls, implying that it may have mutated alongside them. Feral ghouls can often be found working in tandem with Wendigos in various locations, and are not hostile to one another. Wendigos are aggressive and can quickly deal a high amount of damage. Their melee strikes are powerful enough to stagger those in power armor. Their skull-like face has short strands of long, stringy hair, sunken, blackened eye sockets, and a mouth filled with long, jagged teeth. Their hands are large, with fingers tipped by sharp claws. They have a similar radiation resistance to that of feral ghouls, and are sometimes found among small groups of them. Acid can be harvested from their teeth. Wendigos are carnivorous and often hunt prey, and make no discern between human or animal. The Night Stalker is a Wendigo that prowls the area around the Sons of Dane compound. Constant partying from the group residing there previously agitated it to the point of insanity. One day the Sons of Dane hatched a plan to lure the beast out in order to kill it, but the creature killed members of the group first. The Vault Dwellers can still accomplish the goals of the Sons, using music to attract various feral ghouls, and later the Night Stalker itself. Cryptids were a part of local superstitions, with cryptozoologists, like Shelby O'Rourke, doubted by her community. But many cryptids actually existed before the Great War, and both the United States Armed Forces and United States Intelligence, like the Sugar Grove SIGINT, kept records on any cryptid encounters up until the Great War. While considered to be hoaxes and superstition, cryptids still played a large part of the culture before the war as well, with examples of this cryptid craze coming from Point Pleasant, erecting a Mothman statue, Vault-Tec University's football team called the Fighting Wendigos, Tales from the West Virginia Hills, focusing on a different cryptid for each of its stories, and Grafton holding a local holiday where the Grafton monster would appear in the parade, and the real Grafton monster appearing in it after the Great War. After the Great War, cryptids began to appear far more often than they ever had before. This was noted by Shelby O'Rourke from her shack in the mire, where she theorized that the near extinction of the human race made room for cryptids to come out of hiding. The Blue Devil is an enigmatic species of creature that was once the subject of a cryptid legend in Appalachia. Aries has paid Clyde to assist in an investigation of the Blue Devil's origins. In particular, Aries is interested in finding a Blue Devil with white on it and wants to track down and hunt a mother Blue Devil. Although Clyde's investigation does not name a specific species the Blue Devil originated from, he says that they used to be bred for racing and then fighting before the Great War. This continued after the bombs dropped, but Clyde has not fully determined a reason for the Blue Devil's immense size compared to other canine-like creatures. Clyde goes on to say that the size could have something to do with that place and what's nearby, though the note does not clarify what that place is. Clyde notes that Blue Devils are reproducing in the wild, but most pups are not healthy enough to survive. However, those that do survive grow very quickly and are hostile even at a young age. As for the coloration of the creature, Blue Devils typically have dark black hair that appears bluish under certain lighting conditions. However, none of the creatures Clyde surveyed had white hair, as Aries suggested. A Blue Devil has been stalking the Middle Mountain pit stop, unnerving its residents, Clyde and the merchant Vera Thornburg. Feeling that something was watching them from the woods at night, Vera sent a request to Vinnie Costa for more protection at the pit stop, though Vinnie told her that Clyde would be enough to keep the Brahmins safe. During the event Safe and Sound, a Blue Devil will attack the pit stop after the repeller generator there malfunctions and starts attracting creatures. The Blue Devil has a special howl attack in which it can inflict uncontrollable fear to nearby players, much like the Wendigo Colossus and Earl Williams. The Blue Devil cannot be staggered. It has built-in damage reduction, though it is slightly weaker to fire. Flatwoods monsters are aliens described as a hovering creature with glowing purple eyes, capable of abducting wastelanders. The wandering storyteller shares details about the creature, warning that its mere presence can warp the mind of all but the most iron-willed. In pre-war West Virginia, near the town of Flatwoods, many claim to see a dark, mysterious figure with glowing eyes. Colton Pickens claims he was taken onto its spaceship and subjected to experimentation, but his account was dismissed by police. After the war, there are accounts of wastelanders being taken, only being able to recall a blinding light afterward. A Flatwoods monster's head is encased in a purple helmet, which obscures most of its face. The rest of the body is sealed in a protective suit. Flatwoods monsters have no visible legs, the suit instead terminating to a bullet-shaped point at its bottom. The Flatwoods monster has 3 fingers on each hand. Its blood is green, which can be seen when fighting them. A Flatwoods monster can be encountered at night in a random encounter. If approached or shot at, it will engage the player character using teleportation to move around. If a player character exits combat or remains hidden for too long, the Flatwoods monster will suddenly disappear along with a flash of light. During combat, a Flatwoods monster will teleport around. It regenerates lost health when nearly dead multiple times, and can also take control of other creatures and robots around it and use them to defend itself, indicated by the purple glow around the creatures under its control.